Hey, Josh here, and this is my review of Stephanie Meyer's book, The Host, in her follow-up to the series, the Twilight series. Now, I'm not really one to go for romance, I must say, but felt like a change, so I decided to pick this one up anyway. The premise sounded interesting enough. The story is basically kind of past tense of the body snatchers, where parasitic aliens from space known as souls have come down and basically, at the beginning of the book, have already taken over about 99% of humanity. But the difference being in this one is the body snatchers don't want to just rape their planet for resources or whatever unknown intentions. In fact, in here, they have cured cancer, united everyone, world peace. In fact, the Earth's probably a much better place than it was before they came. So the book tried to struggle with a lot of different themes of morality and saying, or mortality too as well, and saying that was this really a better thing to do than leaving us with our personalities, even though that they are technically killing us. Everything is better off without us. So it's not too preachy on that, I will say, which I was actually kind of sad about, because the majority of the book focuses on a romance, quadrangle, I guess, featuring only 3 people, which is kind of weird, to say the least. But that does make an interesting dynamic to the book. Basically, one of the implanted souls into the personalities of the people, into a girl, Melanie Strider, cannot shut off or shut down Melanie's personality, and so she hears her like a voice in her head, and this voice in her head shares all memories with her, and eventually they grow to both love and understand each other, and they go off searching for the person who this one love that they met before, as well as the previous her body's younger brother, Melanie's younger brother. It gets a little confusing from there, if only because the whole head situation's kind of awkward, but that does help, like I said, drive the novel forward. I did think the novel stuttered at a few places. At about the 33 or third mark, it started to slow down a little, and routine took over. And while routine is nice sometimes, it just didn't really add a whole lot after a while. It just kept repeating the same things over and over. And generally, the plot did pick up around, I'd say, the halfway point, and I did enjoy it from there on out. Although there did seem to be a lack of major events. Understandable considering the peaceful nature of the souls, the body snatchers. But still, I would have liked a little more conflict other than romantic conflict, because the plot promises a lot more than that. Which, generally, I think this book tries to shy away from a lot of the sci-fi elements, which, it leaves you interested, but it doesn't give you as many details as you like. Also, I've got to say, the book tries to create, and Stephanie Meyer tries to create, these other alien species that live off-world, and the descriptions of them are so stupid. I mean, even I am not a huge veteran of sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but I'm not going to proclaim like I'm any master of it. But I mean, come on. It's like she's just adding in or limbs and hearts and brains. He's like, when I had 6 brains, or I had 12 fingers, and I had legs on my knees. Like, it just doesn't, there's no physical capacity for it. There's no real reason for it to be there. It's just because it's alien. Nonetheless, some of them are interesting, some of the stories she tells, and generally provides a nice backdrop. It is a little silly, but given the circumstances, it's okay, because the book doesn't focus on them, so it's kind of an odd dichotomy. While I want more sci-fi elements, and I want the exploration of that, also I can tell the author really can't do a lot more than this, so I suppose it's maybe better if she stuck to a lot of the romantic bits. Having said that, I didn't find this book all that romantic. There was a couple parts, don't get me wrong, where you kind of swell up a little, and you're like, oh, I feel bad for these people, or I feel like this is really bitter. But overall, I really didn't get the same feeling that I do in a lot of other romances, or good romances, that really propel me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't help the romantic subplot. However, through all of it, the author still does manage to endear you to the characters, and generally, the characters are okay. They're not amazingly well developed. They're better developed than they were in some of her other books, which I will get to at a later point in time, and the reason for those other books in a later point in time. But, they're generally okay. Her younger brother, which, spoilers, like it's really not much, they do fine, as well as her former love. And they do have more character development than you expect them to in a novel like this type, but they still kind of stop at about the 3/4 point. In fact, the younger brother stops about the halfway point. And I thought the younger brother was probably the most interesting character because he had to deal with a lot of this stuff and didn't have the age or knowledge requisite to really understand a lot of it. And I suppose the main characters, Melanie and Wanderer, which is the name of the soul that took over Melanie's body in the beginning that I was telling you about, more play off each other than have distinct personalities. Wanderer is definitely a Mary Sue character, always doing good, but at the same time is balanced out by Melanie, who is at the same time a different character and at once also the same person, oftentimes taking control of her body unwillingly. So it helps to make a more interesting character, if nothing else. And because they do share the same mind space, the romantic angle does get more than a little prickly. It didn't exactly resolve the way I wanted it to, and I did feel the book kind of caved in the end, where it just not caved, but it did give everyone a happy ending, despite almost what the reader wanted, which I think the author wanted everyone to get a happy ending. But anyway. Most of all the characters are decent. They were largely archetypes, especially Jeb. He's a human resistance leader within the novel who plays a good friend to Wanderer, and he was just so ridiculously towny that it wasn't even funny. Like, I expected him to have like a piece of wheat between his teeth. But regardless of that, they were pretty endearing. And for me, if you can't make a story complicated, you can at least invest in the characters, and this novel did manage to do that. So, getting straight to the writing, Stephanie Meyer has been criticized a lot for her writing, and perhaps rightly so in some cases, but I have to say, though it does not contain any massive faux pas in the host that it is, it's kind of bland. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though, because in it being fairly simple and bland, it doesn't distract you from the story at hand, so it's kind of a lucid form of writing, which I almost appreciate, and I actually do like teen fantasy novels, to be honest. I often don't read them too often, but when I do, it's a nice perk to it. They go by fast, and they really catch your attention because of it. They're a nice pleasure reading. And that's what I think The Host is, really. Despite this being proclaimed as Stephanie Meyer's first quote-unquote adult novel, it really feels just like another teen novel. And which could be a bad thing depending on your predilections, but I didn't find it so bad. If you're looking for an average sci-fi novel with a lot of romance, then you know what? If you like the premise, go ahead, pick it up. If you like Twilight, you're probably going to pick it up anyway, because you're too obsessed with it. But, regardless, like I said, try it. It might not be terrible, if depending on what you think. There is a free chapter summary available on Amazon.ca and on the site and whatnot, so check it out there. Like I said, the writing itself is not as painful as many people have made it out to be. It's not exactly overly descriptive, it's not exactly overly poetic, it's just kind of there. But, like I said, check it out. It's The Host.